How you doing, guys? And welcome to a one-off special on the November 2017 IB chemistry exam. This is a once-off, it's a special, and in this one I'm going to tell you what is on that exam. Not from what I think, but based on data. Data from all of the papers so far. So that's the 2016 specimen, the 2016 May and November exam, and then the 2 time zone in 27 May paper. We're going to look at the data. I've got a complicated spreadsheet. Let's get into the video. I'm going to tell you areas to focus on so you can guide your revision before next Wednesday's exam. And I'm also going to talk about some parts of the course that haven't been assessed so far. So are these likely to occur? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Now, when we talk about this data, I'm talking about paper 2 of both the standard level and the higher level exam. So for the standard level, the top 5 topics you need to know in order of importance, that is the amount of marks that are allocated for them, is topic 1, stoichiometric relationships. That makes up about 18.4% of that paper 2 exam, which is around 9 marks in total. Topic number 4, the bonding. That makes up about 11.6%, or about 6 marks on paper 2. Then we have topic 5, energetics. That makes up about 10% of your exam, or around 5 of the allocated marks. Then we have topic 10, organic chemistry, which comes in at about 9%, which is about 4.5 marks per paper. And then finally, the 5th most important topic is redox processes, coming in at about 8.8%, which is around 4 marks per paper. Now, all of those marks, if we add them up, that tallies up to 28.5 marks out of 50. Now, if you were able to get 90% of those marks in those topics alone, you could actually achieve a 5 on that exam. So those 5 topics are so important to study. Now, if you want to have a look at the data and how I come up with those numbers, I'm going to leave a link in the description below about the spreadsheet, the very complicated spreadsheet that I set up for this, and it'll show you exactly where the marks have been allocated. And from there, you can see that data. So from the data, we can see some things that the IB really like to test, and I would recommend that you review the following. So topic 2.2, the electron configurations. It's only worth 2 marks, but every year there's a question on that. So make sure you know your 1s2, your 2s2, and especially about the ions. They love to ask about electron configurations of ions, especially transition metals. Topic 4.3, the covalent structures section. That's where you need to draw Lewis diagrams, talk about electron domain geometry, bond angles, and the shapes. That's usually worth between 2 and 3 marks, so it's certainly worth revising. Topic 5.3, the bond enthalpies. This is generally worth about 4 marks. So that's where you need to use table 11 of the data book, and if they refer to that in the question, make sure you use it. You use the bond enthalpies to calculate the enthalpy of a reaction, so make sure you see the cue in the question and refer to the data book. Topic 6.1, the collision theory and reaction rates. There is always a question about this. It's usually worth around 4 marks, but you want to be specific with your terminology here, especially if they ask you to explain the rate. The rate is a change in concentration per unit time, so you have to have that time aspect in there as well. So make sure you have a look at some of the mark schemes and the way that they have answered those questions. Then we have topic 9.1, redox processes. Comes up in every single exam. They're generally going to ask you about oxidation numbers or an oxidation number change. And they like to also ask you about writing and balancing redox equations, usually worth 3 marks in total. Then we have topic 10.2, the functional group chemistry. And this one can vary a little bit. In the past couple of exams, they've been asking about the mechanisms. So are those ones likely? Not too sure. But most of the time, they're around 3 to 5 marks. But make sure you know those mechanisms, especially the formation of a halogenoalkane from an alkane. Make sure you know the reaction conditions and the products. Alright, so here's some things that the IB have not focused on so far in any of the paper 2s from the new course. There's been very little on topic 8.3, the pH scale. There has been very little on 8.4, strong acids and bases. They've never asked a question about the Winkler method, which is 9.3. There's been some in paper 1, but never in paper 2. Topic 9.4, voltaic cells. They've never asked you to draw one, and it's very likely that you might be asked to label, but you won't be asked to draw, so don't spend too much time on that. And the IB have never asked a question on 9.5, the electrolytic cells, except for one question in November 2016, but there's been very little in that section of the course. So what are some of the considerations for that then? Well, if you're smart, you can have a look at paper 1 because you get a little bit of a break, and if there's a pH question in paper 1, I don't think it will appear on paper 2. I could see a question regarding explaining the difference between a strong and weak acid, or they could ask you to explain using simple tests. So that is a conductivity test and also a reactivity test. So maybe check that out in topic 8.4. I'd also suggest reviewing a Winkler method question. It's only a matter of time before they put one of those in paper 2, or maybe it could even slip into paper 3. But just remember the relationship between oxygen and the chemicals is a 1:4 relationship. Also, I would suggest just quickly reviewing and labeling the voltaic and electrolytic cells. It hasn't occurred in the last few years, so it certainly could pop up in your exam. Alright, now for the higher level students. So, higher level students, your exam is not as heavily weighted in a few topics like the standard level. But the top 5 topics you must review for higher level are topic 10 and 20, so the organic chemistry. That makes up about 12% or 12 marks out of your total exam. Then we have topic 5, 15, the energetics. That also makes up about 10%, which is about 10 marks. Next, third in line is topic 4 or 14, the bonding, again, making up around 10% of your exam, so around 9 to 10 marks. Fourth is topic 1, the stoichiometry, which makes up between about 8 and 9 marks. It's usually the same as standard level, but in the past there's been small differences between the higher level and the standard level content for topic 1. And then finally, in 5th place is topic 8 and 18, which is the acids-base section, and they like to target that at higher level, and that usually makes up between 7 and 8% of the exam. So those 5 topics listed here, they make up about 46 out of the 95 marks. So as a higher level student, you really need to be a bit more rounded with your understanding of the topics, but they are the top 5. So if I was a higher level student and looking at the data, I think that I would start to review the following. And these are the things that the IB really like to target in the exam. They'd like to target 13.2, the coloured compounds. So make sure that you can explain why complexes are coloured, and also about the d orbital splitting, and that transition metals have a partially filled d orbital. They like to target topic 14.1, which is the further aspects of covalent bonding, especially the 5 and 6 electron domains. So make sure you know the shapes, the bond angles, and they will ask you to draw those as well. The IB like to target 15.1 and 15.2 in the energetics topic. That's the entropy and the Gibbs free energy. So make sure you know how to apply the equations and what they mean. They like to target the acids and bases, so topic 18.2 and 18.3. They really like to target the calculations of acids and bases in paper 2, and also pH curves. So make sure you know how to apply an indicator to a pH curve using the data book. The IB also like to target 20.3, which is the types of organic reactions. That is the SN1 and SN2 mechanisms, but they also like to target the electrophilic addition, which is Markovnikov's rule. So it would be wise to go and study that as well. Okay, so high levels, the things that the IB have not focused on so far in the new course at paper 2 are things like this. Topic 19.2, products of electrolysis of aqueous solutions. There's never been a question about that. Topic 20.2, synthetic routes. They've never asked a question about devising a synthetic route in the new course either. There have been very few questions on the following topics. 15.1, energy cycles, the Born-Haber cycle. In the new course, they haven't asked a question about that. They also haven't asked too many questions about Lewis acids and bases, or about the activation energy and using a graph to determine the activation energy. So what are some of the considerations for higher level? Well, the IB, they tend to cycle the higher level questions around a little bit. If the content was heavily assessed in the May-November 16, it was not as heavily assessed in the May 17. So when you look at that data, think about what they didn't do, because that's what they might like to target. Moving forward though, the 2 May papers are certainly the best practice for the November 17 exam. The two 2016 papers mirrored each other in the content studied, just to different degrees. They changed the number of marks in different sections. So for example, the May 16, it had 4 marks on topic 16.1, the rate expression, whereas in November 16, it had 7 marks on the same topic. So they're just still testing the same content, just changing the number of marks that it's worth. Okay, just a final little exam tip for all students. When you get into the exam, don't panic. There's going to be questions that you've never seen before. That's why it's called an examination. Take a deep breath and think about the things that you've learned in the 2 years of the diploma program. And if you're really struggling, the easiest thing to do is to find the number of moles. That will get you started, and then hopefully your subconscious can help you get a few of the extra marks. But don't panic. It's been a long journey from when you started a couple of years in the diploma till now. I wish you all the best. Hope that your exam goes really well. And for the final time, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, drop a like on the video, subscribe for more, and I might not see you next time.